My wife, Olivia Carter, is a firefighter. That day she was there. I thought she would save us. I was wrong. She ran straight past our room, heading instead to the one next door, to rescue Jason Miller, her ex-boyfriend, and his son. Before he died, my son looked up at me with tear-filled eyes and asked, "Mommy is a hero. She saves so many people. Why didn't she save us?" I had no answer. At Noah's funeral, I didn't call Olivia. But she called me. Not to apologize, not to mourn our son, but to say, "Jason and his son suffered burns. They're in the hospital. Stop being jealous." Then she hung up. I sat in my wheelchair, staring at Noah's tombstone, feeling the burns still raw on my own skin. At that moment, I knew this marriage was over. Thick black smoke choked the air, curling around the ceiling in dark waves. Flames crackled violently, devouring everything in their path. Ethan Carter clutched his 5-year-old son Noah against his chest, shielding him from the unbearable heat. "Daddy, I'm scared." Noah whimpered, his tiny fingers gripping Ethan's shirt. "I know, buddy," Ethan whispered, his voice hoarse. "Just hold on. Mommy's coming." A loud explosion shook the building, making the walls tremble. The heat was unbearable now, the smoke thick enough to burn his lungs. Somewhere outside, sirens wailed. Ethan turned toward the cracked hotel window and saw the fire trucks arriving. His heart pounded with relief when he spotted Olivia leading the rescue team. "See, Noah? Mommy's here. She'll save us." But then, Ethan's world shattered. Olivia didn't even glance in their direction. Instead, she ran straight to the room next door. Through the flames, Ethan saw who she was rescuing first. Jason Miller, her ex-boyfriend. With practiced precision, Olivia pulled Jason and his son from the room, leading them to safety. Ethan's stomach twisted, his breath caught in his throat. "Olivia!" he shouted, his voice raw. "Noah and I are in here." She didn't turn around. She didn't even hesitate. Tears streaked down Noah's soot-covered face as he looked up at his father, his voice trembling. "Mommy is a hero. Why isn't she saving us?" Ethan had no answer. As the fire roared around them, he tightened his grip on his son. And when the rescue team finally returned, it was too late. A dull, persistent beeping echoed in the sterile hospital room. Ethan Carter slowly opened his eyes, his vision blurry, his throat raw from the smoke. Pain radiated through his body, sharp and unbearable, but it was nothing compared to the gaping hole in his chest. Noah was gone. The moment the thought fully formed, a crushing weight settled over him. He turned his head slightly, ignoring the sharp sting in his burned skin. Was Olivia here? She had to be. She had to know he survived. She had to know their son didn't. His eyes darted toward the door, expecting to see her. But she wasn't there. The chair next to his bed was empty. She hadn't come. Days passed. Every time the door creaked open, Ethan's heart leapt with hope, only to shatter when it was just a doctor, a nurse, or a hospital staff member. Not Olivia, not his wife, not the mother of his dead son. His burns itched, his body ached, but nothing hurt more than her absence. She left us in that fire, and now she was leaving him again. Frustration and grief boiled inside him. He needed to see her. Ignoring the pain lancing through his body, Ethan forced himself out of bed, gripping the IV pole for support. Each step was agony, but he pushed forward, stumbling through the sterile hallways. And then he found her. Through the glass partition of another hospital room, Ethan saw Olivia sitting by a hospital bed. She was leaning forward, adjusting a blanket, her expression soft, full of concern. But she wasn't by his bedside. She wasn't mourning Noah. She was with Jason Miller and his son. Ethan's breath hitched, his fingers curling into fists. Jason looked weak but alive, lying in bed with a bandage wrapped around his head. His son, the boy Olivia had saved instead of Noah, was sleeping peacefully beside him. And Olivia? She was watching over them. Like they were her family, like they were the ones who mattered. Ethan felt something inside him snap. With unsteady steps, he pushed the door open and stepped inside. Olivia looked up. For the briefest moment, surprise flickered in her eyes before her face turned cold. "Ethan." Her voice was neutral, unreadable. Ethan swallowed the lump in his throat, his voice hoarse. "Where have you been?" Olivia sighed, as if his pain was an inconvenience. "I've been busy," she said simply. "Busy." His vision blurred with rage. "Busy taking care of them?" He bit out, glaring at Jason. Olivia's eyes narrowed. "Jason and his son were injured. They needed my help." "And what about Noah?" Ethan's voice cracked. "He's dead, Olivia. Our son is dead." A flicker of something crossed her face, but it was gone in an instant. Then she said the words that would haunt him forever. "I followed rescue protocols. I did nothing wrong." Ethan stared at her, his breath stolen from his lungs. Nothing wrong? She abandoned her own son, and she felt no guilt. A bitter laugh escaped his lips, raw and full of pain. "You left us to die, Olivia." His voice was barely above a whisper, but it was enough to make her flinch. "I did my job," she insisted, her tone unmoved. Ethan clenched his fists so tightly that his nails dug into his burned palm. "Then let me do mine," he said, his voice shaking. "I'm divorcing you." The day of Noah's funeral, Olivia didn't come. Ethan sat in his wheelchair, staring at the small coffin lowering into the ground. It was raining, cold and merciless, just like Olivia's heart. He waited. He waited for his wife, for Noah's mother to show up. She never did, and he knew why. She was with Jason, not mourning their son, not grieving their loss, not standing beside the husband she had betrayed. Ethan clenched his jaw, his heart hollow. This wasn't just a funeral for his son. It was the death of his marriage. The moment Noah was buried, so was everything Ethan had ever felt for Olivia. Ethan sat in his hospital bed, staring at the divorce papers in his hands. The weight of them felt unbearable, like a funeral notice for a marriage that had already died. He had spent days waiting for Olivia to come to her senses, waiting for her to say she was sorry, waiting for any sign of regret. But it never came. She had missed their son's funeral. She had chosen Jason and his son over them. She had looked Ethan dead in the eyes and said she did nothing wrong. There was nothing left to salvage. And now, he would make it official. A few days later, Ethan summoned Olivia to the hospital. When she walked in, she looked completely unaffected, as if nothing had happened. Ethan didn't waste time. He held out the papers, his voice like ice. "Sign it." Olivia looked down at the divorce papers and let out an amused scoff. "Ethan, this is ridiculous." Ethan's grip on the pen tightened. "No, Olivia, what's ridiculous is thinking we still have a marriage." She folded her arms, her expression indifferent. "The past is the past. You need to move on." Ethan felt something inside him snap. Move on? She had let their son burn alive, and she was telling him to move on? His chest heaved as rage boiled in his veins. "Move on?" he repeated, voice shaking. She didn't flinch. She truly felt nothing. Ethan let out a slow breath, forcing himself to stay calm. Then he looked her straight in the eyes and asked the question that had been haunting him. "Did Noah beg you to save him?" Silence. For the first time since the fire, Olivia had no words, no quick excuses, no cold justifications, just silence. Her lips parted slightly, but no sound came out. Ethan watched her closely, searching for a flicker of remorse. There was none. She wasn't guilty. She wasn't grieving. She was just inconvenienced. Ethan let out a hollow, bitter laugh. "I see," he muttered. Without another word, he tossed the divorce papers onto the table and turned away from her. She wasn't worth his time anymore. She never had been. Ethan Carter was done talking. There was nothing left to say to a woman who felt no remorse for letting their son die. She had looked him in the eye and dismissed Noah like he was nothing. Now, she would know what it felt like to lose everything. The first thing Ethan did when he was discharged from the hospital was hire a lawyer. Not for the divorce. For revenge. Olivia had made one critical mistake. She was the commanding officer the night of the fire. And Ethan was going to prove that she had violated protocol. His lawyer worked quickly, gathering incident reports, witness testimonies, and security footage from the hotel. The evidence was damning. Olivia had received the exact location of Ethan and Noah's room, but she chose to ignore it. Multiple firefighters recalled hearing Ethan's screams for help, but Olivia ordered them to focus elsewhere. The final report claimed Ethan and Noah had been unreachable in time, but the security footage proved otherwise. She left them to die, and now she was going to pay for it. Ethan filed a formal complaint with the fire department's internal review board. Olivia was immediately placed under investigation. Within days, she was suspended from duty. News of her suspension spread fast. She was no longer the respected fire chief. She was now a liability. Her fellow firefighters, once loyal friends, started keeping their distance. Her superiors, who once praised her leadership, now questioned her judgment. The woman who had abandoned her own family was now watching her career crumble. And Ethan? He was just getting started. While Olivia's world was collapsing, Jason Miller's wasn't far behind. Without his firefighter salary, Olivia was forced to support Jason and his son. But Ethan had already predicted this. He had dug into Jason's past, uncovering a mountain of unpaid debts and legal troubles. Jason wasn't just financially unstable, he was a walking disaster. As Olivia struggled to keep both of them afloat, Jason grew frustrated. Gone was the charming ex-boyfriend she had once risked everything for. Now he was just another burden, and for the first time, Olivia started to regret her choices. But by then, it was too late. Olivia Carter had built her life on control. She controlled her career. She controlled her reputation. And for years, she had controlled Ethan, believing he would always be the devoted, loyal husband who would endure anything. She had been wrong, because now he was the one pulling the strings. And she was about to lose everything. Ethan had spent years working hard, saving money for their future, for Noah's future. But now, as he went through their joint bank accounts, he saw exactly where that money had gone. Not to their family, not to Noah's education, to Jason. Olivia had been funding Jason's lifestyle for months, maybe even years. Thousands of dollars in loans that were never repaid. Bills paid under Olivia's name, expensive gifts for Jason's son. Ethan's blood boiled. She had let their own child die, but she had used their money to support another man's son. He took the financial records to his lawyer. Within days, Olivia received a legal notice. Ethan was suing her for misuse of marital assets. It wasn't just a divorce anymore. Now it was a public scandal. As news of the lawsuit spread, Olivia's already damaged reputation crumbled. She had been suspended from the fire department, and now she was being accused of embezzling family finances. Her former colleagues, the ones who once admired her leadership, now whispered behind her back. She abandoned her own husband and kid. She stole money for some other man. She deserved to be fired. Once she had been the respected fire chief. Now she was a disgrace. And Ethan? He watched it all fall apart. With her career in ruins and a lawsuit looming over her, Olivia did the only thing she could think of. She turned to Jason Miller. He had been the reason she made these choices. She had saved him first. She had risked everything for him. Surely, he would stand by her now. But Jason wasn't the same charming, confident man anymore. Now he was cold, distant. He looked at her the way people looked at a sinking ship. "I can't deal with this right now, Olivia," he muttered when she begged for his help. "I lost my job too, remember?" She stared at him, shocked. He was pushing her away. The man she had chosen over her husband. The man she had sacrificed her family for. He was abandoning her. For the first time, real fear crept into Olivia's heart. Because now she was truly alone, and there was no one left to save her. The final blow came faster than Olivia expected. For weeks, she had clung to the hope that her suspension from the fire department would be temporary, that the investigation would clear her name, that Ethan's lawsuit would settle quietly. But deep down, she knew the truth. Her career was over, her reputation was destroyed. And worst of all, Jason was gone. When Olivia received the termination letter, her hands trembled. She already knew what it would say, but seeing it in writing made it real. She wasn't just suspended anymore. She was fired. Permanently. No chance of appeal. No possibility of reinstatement. Her years of service, her hard-earned leadership position, gone. She was no longer Fire Chief Olivia Carter. She was just Olivia, the woman who let her husband and son burn. The media had torn her apart. Her fellow firefighters wanted nothing to do with her, and now she had nothing left. Her career was her pride, her identity. Now it was another casualty of Ethan's revenge. She sat in her apartment, staring blankly at the wall when Jason walked in. She looked up at him, searching for comfort. She had given up everything for him. But the look in his eyes made her stomach drop. "Jason," she whispered. He didn't sit down, didn't offer sympathy, didn't even look guilty. "I think we should take a break," he said, running a hand through his hair. Olivia froze. "What?" Jason sighed. "Look, Olivia, this is too much. I can't deal with all your problems." She felt the room spinning. "My problems?" she repeated in disbelief. "I saved you. I lost everything because of you." Jason shook his head, already stepping toward the door. "I didn't ask you to." The words hit harder than a slap. Then he was gone. The door shut. And for the first time, Olivia truly understood what she had done. She had destroyed her own life, and no one was coming to save her. Olivia was out of options. No job, no allies, no money. So she did the only thing left. She went to see Ethan. He was waiting for her, as if he knew she would come crawling back. He sat in his office, calm and unreadable, as she walked in. Her voice broke as she spoke. "Ethan, please, I was wrong. I know I hurt you. I know I made mistakes. I lost everything. I have nothing left. Please, just stop." For a moment, silence stretched between them. Then Ethan stood. He slowly walked toward her, his expression unreadable. Then he leaned in, his voice low, cold, and final. "Did you stop when no one needed you?" Olivia staggered back like she had been punched in the gut. Tears spilled down her cheeks, but Ethan only watched her with dead, emotionless eyes. And in that moment, she knew. She could beg for 1,000 years, and it still wouldn't be enough. It was too late, and Ethan Carter had won. Olivia Carter used to be someone. People used to respect her. She used to wear her firefighter uniform with pride, walking through the station with her head held high. Now, when she walked down the street, people whispered behind her back. Some looked at her with disgust. Others didn't bother to look at her at all. She had become a ghost of her former self. And worst of all, she had no one to blame but herself. Desperation set in quickly. She had bills to pay, but with her reputation tarnished, no fire department would hire her. She applied for office jobs, customer service, anything. But as soon as they saw her name, the answer was always the same. "Sorry, but we've decided to go in another direction." A polite way of saying, "We don't hire monsters." Word had spread far beyond the fire department. Her divorce, the lawsuit, her public disgrace, it was all over the internet. There was no escaping it. No running from the truth. She was unwanted, unemployable, irrelevant. At first, Olivia told herself she could fix it. She told herself that people would forget, that she just needed to lay low and wait. But as the weeks passed, the silence became unbearable. No phone calls, no texts, no one checking in. She had never lived alone before, not truly. There had always been Ethan, or her colleagues at the station, or even Jason. But now, her apartment was empty, just like her life. And for the first time, she had to sit in the quiet and face herself. There was no distraction from the memories, no escape from the mistakes. And the worst part? She deserved every second of it. One evening, Olivia walked through a small park, lost in thought. Then she saw him, a little boy, around Noah's age. He was playing with his father, laughing as he ran through the grass. The sound of his joyful giggles sent a sharp pain lancing through her chest. It should have been Noah. He should have been here, but he wasn't. Because of her. She sank onto a nearby bench, her hands trembling, Tears blurred her vision as she watched the father lift his son into the air, spinning him around while the boy squealed in delight. It was a sight she had seen Ethan do with Noah countless times, and now she would never see it again. She would never hear Noah's laugh. Never hold him again. Never get another chance to be his mother. Her chest tightened painfully as reality crashed down on her. Noah was gone, and no amount of regret could bring him back. For the first time since the fire, Olivia broke down completely. She sobbed, right there in the middle of the park, as the weight of everything she had done crushed her completely. There was no redemption, no way to fix it. She had lost her job, her reputation, her future, her family. But the worst punishment of all? Living every single day knowing that she could never undo her mistake. And that was a fate worse than death. For a long time, Ethan Carter lived with nothing but anger. It had fueled him. It had given him purpose. Destroying Olivia wasn't just revenge, it had been justice. She had taken everything from him. Now she had nothing. And yet, as he sat alone in his office staring at the divorce papers finally signed, Ethan felt something he hadn't expected. Emptiness. The rage that had once consumed him was gone, and in its place was a hollow silence. For months, he had thought ruining Olivia would bring him peace. That seeing her fall would somehow fix the hole Noah left behind. But no amount of lawsuits, no amount of suffering she endured would bring his son back. Nothing could. For the first time, Ethan accepted that. And for the first time, he stopped thinking about Olivia. Because she wasn't worth his energy anymore. She wasn't worth anything to him. Instead of focusing on what he lost, Ethan decided to focus on what he could still change. With the assets he won back from Olivia, he established a foundation, the Noah Carter Foundation, a charity to help children who lost their parents in fires. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough. But it was something. And for the first time in years, Ethan felt like he was doing something that mattered. One afternoon, Ethan took a walk through the city, lost in thought. He wasn't sure where he was going, only that he wanted to breathe fresh air for once. Then, as he passed by a small cafe, he saw a young couple with their child. The little boy was about Noah's age, laughing as his father lifted him onto his shoulders. The sight should have hurt. It should have made his chest ache with grief. But instead, for the first time in years, Ethan smiled. Not a bitter smile, not a forced one, a real, genuine smile. Because for the first time, he wasn't drowning in pain, he wasn't consumed by rage, he had finally truly let go. And for the first time since Noah died, Ethan Carter felt free. The city that once held all of Ethan Carter's memories was now nothing but a graveyard of the past. Every street, every building, it all reminded him of what he had lost. Noah's laughter in the park, the home he had built, believing it was a safe haven for his family, the fire station where Olivia once stood with pride before her mask of heroism crumbled into nothing. Ethan couldn't stay here anymore. This place wasn't home. It was just a collection of ghosts. Packing his things took only a few hours. He didn't have much anymore. He had sold the house, cut ties with everything that once tied him to his old life. There was no need for goodbyes. The people who had mattered, his son, his family, were already gone. All that was left was him. And for the first time, that was enough. Ethan arrived in a new city, one where no one knew his name, a place where he wasn't the man who had lost everything. Where he wasn't the widower of a failed marriage or the man who had orchestrated the perfect revenge. Here, he was just Ethan Carter. A man with a future still ahead of him. For so long, he had lived for his wife, his son, his pain, his revenge. Now, for the first time, he was living for himself. One evening, Ethan stood by the ocean, watching as the waves stretched endlessly into the horizon. The sky burned with the colors of a setting sun, painting the water in hues of gold and crimson. He took a deep breath, feeling the crisp, salty air fill his lungs. Then, as the wind whispered around him, he closed his eyes and spoke softly. In my past life, I lived for others. This time, I live for myself. The words weren't just a declaration. They were a promise to himself, a promise to Noah, a promise to never let the past define him again. Ethan Carter turned away from the ocean and walked toward his future. Thank you for listening to LNC Studios stories. If you find them interesting, please subscribe and like.